Stanton,
Aki,
how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing really good.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to see you.
Well, I have two good friends in Greece, Vasilis and Kostas, and they advised me that I should meet you
Yes.
as soon as I arrived in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But why should I meet you?
Well, I think because I love this city so much. I was born in the suburbs, just out of the main city. And then I started to realize that, man, this is the greatest place, at least for me,
It is for you.
in the world. Yeah. So as I toured and started traveling, I just kept getting reaffirmed that this is the place for me. And I love touring and sharing that with people.
Mhm.
I think that's why I became such fast friends with Kostas and Vasily, because the joy of where I come from, I want to share that with people all the time, and hopefully make it infectious. And so when I play music, they can hear that. They can hear and see and feel the joy of where I come from, and then I share that with people. So it's like I bring a part of New Orleans with me wherever I go, because I can sit down at the drums and I can share what this city is all about to me. I can't give you all the food and all the places right away, but I can at least start to exude some of the way that I hear the sounds of the city and share that with people. And so it's like a traveling, it's kind of like a traveling small party, presentation of what's great about New Orleans.
What are you doing in life?
I play drums a lot. I currently tour with a band called Galactic a lot.
It's a trio.
No, Galactic is 7 band members. So
7 members.
yeah, drums, bass. So we are sitting on the stage of Tipitina's, and when we first started playing together, we were like, oh my God, it'll be the greatest thing ever when we get to play together on the stage of Tipitina. So we started off, opening as an opener band, right? Opening for bands here. Then we started headlining. So we headlined here for over 20 years, playing a lot of the major holiday nights. So things like New Year's Eve, Halloween, 2 nights during Jazz Fest, 2 nights during Mardi Gras.
Jazz Fest is now.
Yeah, so we're coming up on Jazz Fest now. We just played Halloween. And we just played Mardi Gras. So all these things, 20 years of playing all those nights led to where when the owner of this, the previous owner, wanted to sell, we wanted to take it over. So now we are co-owners of this club, which for us is still surreal and overwhelmingly humbling.
So this is an institution. Tipitina is the name of the club, which was established in 1977.
Correct.
By
14 people who pooled their resources to buy a place called the 501 Club. And they did, and they wanted to create a place where musicians like Professor Longhair and the Meters and Earl King and James Booker could come and have a place to play where they would be appreciated. So all of these bands that I just mentioned started here in the early days, and then bands like the Neville Brothers, the Meters, Dr. John, the Radiators, all these bands played here very regularly. Then we started playing here regularly over 20 years ago. And it's still my favorite venue I've ever played, and I've been to a lot of places.
So the music scene, to say it bluntly, is not black. I expected I would meet a black guy. So it's a mixed thing.
It is coming. All of the roots are coming from black culture.
Okay.
That is accurate, and it's all has its roots in Africa, and through the horrific practices of slavery. People were forced to migrate from Africa. Then they went through Haiti, Cuba, and picked up all these culturally significant things, and then brought it to New Orleans, where all of those cultures, African, Haitian, Cuban, all of those cultures came to New Orleans and started to migrate and cross-pollinate with European culture.
This is the so-called gambo.
Yeah, and it's really it's a cultural melting pot, because you had all of these things I just talked about, and Congo Square in New Orleans was the only place in the United States that allowed people who were forced to migrate through the horrific practices of slavery New Orleans is the only place that gave those people a place to practice their culture, their religion, dance, and song. And that all happened with slaves in Congo Square, and that horrific practice. Congo Square gave them a safe place and solace where on Sundays they could practice this culture. And then in the city, these cultures were kept alive in Congo Square, and then those cultures started to cross-pollinate with European culture. And that's what makes New Orleans such a unique place. And you talk to a lot of New Orleans musicians, and they will say that, a lot of Western music that we hear, whether it's funk, rhythm and blues, even country or Western, I say country and Western to be funny, but anything that's got a backbeat, it's coming from some of the things that we harbored here in New Orleans with the culture, rhythm, and music of Africa cross-pollinating with some of the European culture.
So you're talking about the period in the 19th century when racism was spread, especially in the South.
Oh, yeah.
So, as far as you know, let's say, people of all colors participated in this movement, let's say, or it was, let's say, a black thing?
So, black in Congo Square, and then in New Orleans, it's very multicultural, and as you were saying, yes, there are a lot of, white people and other races that play this black American music that was created. A lot of it has its roots and was created here in New Orleans. But it is multicultural because New Orleans is a multicultural city. But, the roots of it are definitely African and definitely black. But we in New Orleans, we're a very multicultural community. And it's very welcoming. And if you show up to these places like Mardi Gras Indian practice or second lines or, any of the things, the clubs that, as a kid, man, I would go to these clubs where I had no business being in these neighborhoods or being in these clubs, where I was going to hear some of my favorite musicians who were black musicians, and they would play some clubs where I might not have should have been there, but they were like, oh, he's cool, he's with me, right? And they would vouch for me. And that was super important because I got to get an inside look at some of this music, this drumming that as a kid anywhere else, I wouldn't have gotten access to this. And because I've had relationships with these drummers and these musicians, and they've vouched for me and let me come into this culture, that I think that adds a depth to what I have to present and say on the drums that some other people don't have. So this stage, okay, I started playing on this stage when I was 16 years old.
16 years old?
16 years old, for a thing called the Young People's Jazz Forum, okay? And so some of the young people who were coming to sit in at the time were Nicholas Payton, Jason Marcellus, guys who have gone on to become world-class musicians. But we would come in here and I would get to sit in, and Johnny Vodakovich was often playing drums. So I would get to hear him play, and then I would play, and then he would tell me everything that I did terribly wrong, and then I would work on it for all week long. So being a kid, looking up in these rafters, you're just like, oh my God. Like, you might have like 20 parents listening, and you're like, oh my God, this is where the Meters used to play. This is where the Neville Brothers used to play. One day, I hope to play in this club and see these rafters full, right? See that balcony full. And so this stage has always been a place for New Orleans musicians to aspire to. If you make it to Tipitina's as a New Orleans musician, you pretty much made it.
You made it.
You made it.
So if you have made it there,
you made it.
You can make it anywhere.
Yeah, and then if you learn how to take it on the road, and if you can win over an audience in New Orleans and then take it on the road, we knew that we'd be able to take it on the road and then grow it, and that's what we've done. And with Galactic, we play all over the country, all over the world. But what's great now is that, you know, when we are doing business hours, you can stand here, see the band, order a drink. Usually there's, you know, the general audience is over here, but for us and my wife and all the band, the opener, you know, so I'll sit here and hang with the opener while we watch a headliner that comes to hear music here all the time. It's one of my favorite places to come. This is the thing which is so magical about this place is that, yes, you can have brass bands in here, Mardi Gras Indians, all the bands that I've already mentioned. But check this out. This place is the first gig that a lot of rock bands have played. So bands like Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Rage Against the Machine, all played their first gig in New Orleans here. So
and you can play with the Rage.
Tom Morello, I did. Yes. I did a record with Tom Morello. That is true, and that was because we did a benefit after Katrina. I was the house drummer on the benefit, and I met Tom that way. And he was like, "I want to hire you for a session."
Is it more, let's say, more touristic because it's more famous, or it's a real thing?
Oh, it's real. That's why people love it so much. As you're walking through here, I mean, look at all this. This is like, it's. You know how many people have leaned up against this pillar? It's like, man, this place just has history, you know? And, you know, how many times I've sat here and had drinks with, you know, one of the guys in one of the other bands, or one of, you know, Herlin Riley, one of my favorite drummers in the world. I'll invite him to come, and now he'll show up and I'll get him a drink. Now I know what he drinks, you know, Crown and Coke with a splash of lemon, you know?
Really?
Yes. And so, but this place is that kind of place where young musicians and older musicians can share a beverage and share stories, and while listening to music, you know, I feel like everybody feels comfortable in this place, right? And we want to continue that. And that's why it's so special. This is our very long General Pershing bar, because General Pershing is the bar behind it. But what I'm walking to, and I want to show you, so you can look up here, and we still have the Mardi Gras Indian headdress that we put on Professor Longhair during Mardi Gras, but that's Professor Longhair up there. So, Tank, do you mind telling us when this tapestry got hung up there above the stage?
It was put above the stage in 1986. When it first opened, you know, Tipitina's was a one-story venue, and it was apartments upstairs. Closed for a year, and they cut the balcony out and made it into a two-story room, and that's when they put the tapestry above the stage.
Yeah, very cool. Professor Longhair is an African-American black musician, and the headdress comes from the New Orleans Mardi Gras Indians. And Mardi Gras Indians are a whole cultural experience where they spend all year long, but they do some of this to show homage to the Native Americans, who were very welcoming. When Africans were starting to be forced migrated to the States and to New Orleans, there were Native Americans who had been here for a long time. And they would say, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but they were very welcoming in the way that, you know, hey, look, we've been getting messed over by the white man for a long time. We'll show you some of the back bayous and waterways where you can escape. So some of the Native Americans helped some of the Africans escape. And so to show homage out of years and years of that kind of a close connection, the Mardi Gras Indians started, and this is you know, very, very brief synopsis of some of that history.
Stanton, you're about 50 years old.
Yes.
So, and you have lived from inside out the city. In what ways has it changed throughout the years? Let's say the last 30 years or something.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I mean, it's still, in my opinion, the greatest place on earth, right? And I think that it has developed some more attention and appreciation from the world at large. So as more people come in and more people come and want to stay here, and we get more tourism coming in, what happens is that some of the establishments realize, oh, there's money to be made here. Mm-hmm. So as some of the clubs that I was playing when I was younger, they would let you come in and play all original music and play songs that you wrote. And, you know, if a few people showed up, that's great. And so we got to develop a lot of original bands during that time, and Galactic being one of them. So this music scene was very welcoming and supportive of young musicians writing their own music at that time. Now you've got clubs that realize, oh, wait a minute, there's money to be made here. We need to put it in a band that's playing songs that people are going to recognize wherever they're coming from. So you get more
likable.
You get a lot more popular music being played. So that is happening. But if you know where to go, you can still find the most soul-enriching, roots, heavy, deep American music that you won't find anywhere else. If you know when to go find Shannon Powell and Herlin Riley and these guys, it's still to this day, it's just soul-enriching. Like, if you see Shannon Powell at Preservation Hall, and keep in mind, there are no microphones. And I mean, you sit and you listen and you're hearing the instruments with no interference, no microphones, no sound system. It's making the hair stand up on my arm right now. And that's why we live here. And then when you hear the Mardi Gras Indians coming out and you walk with them in broad daylight and you're blocking traffic and it's all, you know, Honda Wanda, yo mama. Honda Wanda, yo mama. I mean, there's nothing like it, and that is all still happening here, you know. So that's what makes this place just wonderful. It's just full of history, tradition, but life enriching music and culture.
People who are watching you now talking so passionately about this city, probably some of them have been here, and some of them would like to come here.
Yes,
and coming into New Orleans, this is the second time for us. We came here in 2009, so always after Katrina. This is a city that, okay, it's the French Quarter, the Bourbon Street, the Frenchman Street, and the River Walk, okay, which is overwhelmingly touristic and overwhelmingly they want to take money from you. So what would you advise to a visitor coming here, what to do and what not to do?
Yes, so those are great questions. First off, one of the things, if you really want to experience the culture, I advise, you know, no offense to Bourbon Street, but stay away from Bourbon Street.
Stay away from Bourbon Street.
I advise that if you really want to get into New Orleans culture for real, and then, you know, go find out when Shannon Powell is playing at Preservation Hall. And go find Shannon Powell, tell him I sent you, and then find out where else Shannon Powell is playing. He might be playing in front of his house. And you're not going to hear about that in any of the listings. He likes to play in front of his house sometimes. And then he might be playing somewhere else. So go find where Shannon is playing. Find out where Herlin Riley is playing. And then ask Herlin, where else are you playing this week? Right? Go find where Johnny Vodakovich is playing. Go find where Russell Baptiste is playing. Go find where Kermit Ruffins is playing, right? Go find where, Dr. Michael White is playing. I'm giving you all these different types of music, but these are guys who live in the city and play all the time. And then go find the real musicians and then talk to them. And what you can get from a $5 or $10 beverage, whether they drink or they don't. If they don't drink, can I buy you a soda water? And they say, what can I get for you? Can I please just ask you a couple questions real quick? Can I get you bartender? What are you drinking? Oh, Hurlin Riley, right here at this bar. I got Hurlin Riley a Crown and Coke with a lemon. Right? And I sat here and talked to him for 45 minutes the other night. Right here. And everybody's like, oh, Hurlin. And we just stood here and talked. But you can get so much life-affirming information from people just by being kind and saying, let me get you something. What can I do for you? And then I've gotten so many lessons and great conversations by, oh, what you drinking today? Shannon, oh, you want a Budweiser? Can I get a Budweiser? And then, Shannon, where are you playing? And then write it down. Mm-hmm. And then, there you go. That might last 2 minutes, but then you know where Shannon is playing. And then you go see him some more.
So the music scene is a ghetto here. So somebody from the outside, an outsider, can get into the scene.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because musicians' bills don't pay themselves. So we need people we need people coming, and we need people who want to support it. If you want to appreciate it and support it and love it, we want you to come, man. We can't afford to be exclusive. We've got to be inclusive. Yeah.
So is this the same for the city in general? Is it an inclusive city?
Yeah, it is. It is, and that's what's so wonderful about it, man. It's like, you can meet Shannon Powell, and then on the break, like I said, you get him something at the bar, and he says, what you doing on the second set? You want to come sit in? So Shannon might let you sit in if he likes you, and getting to sit in while Shannon Powell sings, like, that's
unscheduled.
Yeah, unscheduled and unlike anything else in the world. Because now you've got to play behind who is definitely going to be one of your favorite drummers, and then you got to play behind him, and then you got to play super quiet, and you're like, you're so nervous, your hands are shaking. That makes me way more nervous than playing in front of 80,000 people. Trying to play at this volume level while Shannon's singing without a microphone at Preservation Hall. And that will make your playing and your empathy as a human being go to this level in a very short amount of time, much quicker than any other kind of experience that you're gonna get. But you really, the more you ask questions and the more you seek out what's really going on and the real culturally rich music and events, and you show up to those things, and it's so simple. Just ask questions. Just ask questions from the people that you meet. That's it. Don't go to the big places that are asking you for money. Seek out the smaller places where real locals are.
Yes.
And then ask questions. This is Professor Longhair. This is Henry Roland Bird, better known as Professor Longhair. And this whole place was started so that he and musicians like him would have a place and a safe place to come play music and be appreciated. Because at the time, in 1977, when this place was first opened, believe it or not, there weren't a lot of places that musicians that were really trying to tap into the roots of what New Orleans music was all about. There weren't a lot of places that these guys could really go play. So musicians like Professor Longhair, Earl King, James Booker, the Meters, the Neville Brothers, Dr. John, all those bands played here. And then later the Radiators, later Galactic, So this is the guy, though, that is the focal point and the main inspiration for even opening this place. And so this bronze bust is kind of a focal point for a lot of people. When you walk in, this is Professor Longhair, and this place wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
So Professor Longhair, he died in 1980,
Yes.
as far as I know. So he didn't live a dramatic period in New Orleans, which is 2005 with the Katrina hurricane. But you lived it here.
Yes.
What was the impact on the city?
The impact was that we felt like our whole way of life, that you've just heard me talk about how much I love it. Well, everybody who lives here loves it just as much as I do. And they have a different reason or a different whole bunch of reasons why. But everybody's got their own love affair with New Orleans. And when Katrina happened, we felt like all of that was taken away. And not just taken away from us, but you can hear like how much I love sharing this with people. So we felt like it was taken away from the world. And we didn't know if New Orleans would ever come back, because I mean, it was bad. I mean, luckily this area didn't flood, but the areas that flooded, the water got up to here and higher. There are still places that you'll go to that they painted the watermark, right? So you know that this place was underwater. It still is unfathomable to think of the whole city underwater like that, and how you come back from that. And it took a while, but the areas that didn't flood, French Quarter and all up and down Magazine Street and Chapatulas, all of that didn't flood because it was close to the river. So what happened was, for hundreds of thousands of years, the river would flood, and then it would deposit sediment wherever it flooded. So you had the river, and it was changing course, but everything close to the river, this is over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, everything close to the river was high ground because the river kept flooding and depositing sediment. Then in the 20s, when the levees locked the river in place, then that meant the lower lying areas just kept getting more and more lower lying. And then that's what happened, is that the lower lying areas in between the river and the lake, it just flooded like a bowl. The city has been thriving, but now you get something like COVID, right? Now the crime in the city is out of control.
Is worse now?
It's worse, yeah.
It's worse.
It is.
Today
Unfortunately,
than 20 years ago.
I believe it is, yeah. I believe it is.
Because
So
poverty, let me say something, that this city had an enormous human loss. About 2,000 people lost their lives that days. And aftermath, it has brain drain. So I think 50% of the people became internal immigrants in different places in the United States, as many have come back now.
yeah,
So what, if I know the numbers well, it was a city of 500,000 people, and it became a city of 250,000 people. And now it's a city of 400,000 people, something like that. So what was the feeling of this population change?
yeah. So I mean, you do have some younger, for lack of a better term, hipster demographic moving here. But then how many of them stay after Ida? Because that was pretty brutal. We went weeks without power. This is just August. This is not even a year ago. And then after COVID opening up, and there is a lot of crime. And I don't have any qualms talking about that, because I want people to know, if they are going to come here, be careful. Like,
Yes.
It's the greatest place in the world, but it's not the safest place in the world. You just have to be smart, and you have to be careful. And, traveling groups, don't go into, places that you feel like you shouldn't, and ask questions. Should I be going over here? Should I walk there, or should I take an Uber? Take an Uber, right? Or a Lyft. But I'm saying all this because I want people to be safe when they come here, And
So the pandemic, do you think it influenced the psyche of the city, so that people got crazy a little bit because of that?
I think so. Yeah, there's part of that. There's also people, people. I don't want to comment too much on the why, other than it's so case by case basis. But this, you shut the world down for 2 years, and then coming back out of it.
Especially in a city like this,
Yeah.
it's vibrant, it wants to have fun, right?
Yeah. So you coming out of it, and, friends of mine really anticipated this. They're like, you're going to see crime like you've never seen before. It was random. It was just senseless acts of violence, and they were predicting it 2 years ago when it first started shutting down. So I really hope that it gets better. I feel
Let's be
confident.
positive in any way, because
I feel like it will. It's got to. It's got to get better. It's like, so, I'm answering all this because I feel like you asked me, like, how do I feel right now? How's the city doing? I think the city is poised to thrive more than it ever has, but you get people coming in, and it's like, okay, great. New Orleans is the greatest place to live, I think, but it's not the easiest place to live.
to live. Stanton, it's fantastic listening to you,
Thank you.
and we could talk all day.
We could.
I would like you to tell me, you told me that this is the best place in the world to live. And I
Yes.
can understand why. You're a musician, you live here. But where else would you live? Let's say, which are the places you would
Well, that's a great.
betray New Orleans?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I'm not just saying this, but I really loved my time in Greece.
You have been in Greece,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so
thanks to Vasilis.
yeah, Vasilis brought me over for the lab drum camp, and it was about an hour and a half outside of Athens on this ranch, and that was wonderful. But then we spent a few days in Athens, and I did 2 nights of trio gigs with Astirios and Babis, and we just the people that I met, and just the welcoming nature of people, and the joy of life. I felt I related to.
You felt
I
that.
really related to it, and I loved playing with those guys and playing for Greek people who I felt reacted in a very similar way that people do in New Orleans. And it's like, oh, you get done, it's like, oh, let's have a drink. Let's go, man, let's go to this souvlaki. Not that souvlaki, this one.
This is like-
Yes,
yeah.
this one. This is the one. This one. And, we did that, and it was just like, oh, just talking about music and life and drums and, just so much fun. And there's just so much joy for life, I think. So I really loved that. And there's access to beaches, and so I'm not just saying that, man. I've had to think about that. Like, where else would I want to be? It's like, man, I love Greece.
So I
Awesome.
cannot invite you because I don't live in Greece, but I would really love to see you playing
Yeah.
in Greece, and I would really love to see you playing even here. So give us your program, how somebody can see Stanton Moore playing
Yeah.
this period.
Yeah. So
What's next?
Tonight I'm playing at the Bayou Bar in the Pontchartrain Hotel. So that's a piano trio gig that I do occasionally. I'll be playing here all throughout Jazz Fest. I'll be playing here twice with Galactic, once with Dragon Smoke. There's a few other projects.
Next month, let's say the following months. What is your schedule?
So coming up April, I mean, yeah. So literally next month, I will have just 20 gigs in 11 days for Jazz Fest. Yeah, and a bunch of them will be in this room. I think 5 or 6 gigs in this room on this stage, and then some of the other gigs around town like DBA, Toulouse Theater. So yeah, coming up for Jazz Fest, it's my busiest time of the year, and we will be playing on the main stage at the actual fairgrounds, which is about a 15-20 minute ride away from here. But every year during Jazz Fest, it's 2 weekends. Last weekend of April, first weekend of May. And during that, I used to play upwards of 30 gigs in 11 days. I played 31 gigs one year, and I was like, that's too much. So I pared it down to about 20 gigs in 11 days.
And for the people who cannot come right now in New Orleans to watch musicians like Stanton, I would advise you go to YouTube, maybe, to see your channel, which is Stanton Moore, right?
Yep.
We'll write it somewhere here.
Yeah, please check out my YouTube channel.
And have many playlists. You can see all his history inside. And where else? Let's say, are some of these events streamed online?
Some of them are streamed. Some of them eventually wind up on YouTube. Also, any drummers out there, if any drummers are interested in what I have to present, I do a lot of online drum lessons with my online drum school, Stanton Moore Drum Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And so
somebody in Greece can learn drums.
1,000,000%. Yeah.
1,000,000%.
So I film a lot of lessons and put them up StantonMooreDrumAcademy.com, and it's all about, some of it's about what I do, some of it's about the New Orleans stuff, some of it's about even from beginner to intermediate. I have a whole program that goes beginner, intermediate, even into advanced. So all of that is online. And there's a 14-day trial, so you can try it for free.
That's fantastic.
For 14 days, and it's my online drum school. That's what I've been putting a lot of my time and effort into lately, is that. And some of my Greek guys are subscribed, and they're members.
Stanton, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
And this way we are going to say goodbye.
I love it. I love it.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes, indeed, man. Wonderful.